Okay, Mr. Mayor, we are live and ready to go when you are.
Okay, sounds good. We'll go ahead and call. Let's see here. Yep. Okay. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Seldovia City Council, Monday, January 12th, 2026. Time is 6:02 p.m. And we'll go ahead and do roll call. Coleman,
Here.
Taylor,
Here.
Barber,
Here.
Keithley,
Here.
and Langbart.
Here.
Okay, and we're hoping that Peyton will join us here in the next few minutes. So she's currently absent. And if you could go ahead, Liz, and lead us off in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, everyone. All right, we'll move down to agenda approval. Pretty short tonight, but we'll go ahead and look for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I
go
approve tonight.
Go ahead.
I approve tonight's agenda.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Coleman to approve tonight's agenda with a second by Langbart. Any further discussion on the agenda before we vote? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote on the approval of tonight's agenda. All those in favor, Coleman,
Aye.
Taylor,
Aye.
let's see, Barber,
Aye.
Keithley,
Aye.
and Langbart.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes, 5 in the affirmative and 1 absent. That'll take us down to item E, consent agenda. All items under the consent agenda are approved with a single motion and no discussion and 1 vote. A council member may request to remove any item for discussion and a separate vote. Any items removed from the consent agenda will be placed under new business. We only have 1 item tonight on the consent agenda. That's the minutes of the special meeting from December 15th, 2025. And I'm assuming you guys all had a few minutes to read that over. And does any member wish to remove any item at this time for further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll go ahead and look for a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda by Keithley with a second by Langbart. Any further discussion on the consent agenda before we vote? Okay, I'm hearing none. We'll go ahead and vote on the approval of tonight's consent agenda. All those in favor, Coleman,
Aye.
Taylor,
Aye.
Barber,
Aye.
Keithley,
Aye.
Langbart.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes, 5 in the affirmative and 1 absent. That will take us down to our next item, item F, mayoral proclamations, none. Moving on to item G, public presentation, prior notice. And it looks like we have Willie Dunn, our South Peninsula, Kenai Peninsula Borough Assembly member. Willie, I see your photo on there, so I'm assuming you can hear us.
I can. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely, perfect.
Yeah. Willie, did
Great.
you want me to promote you to panelist so you can have video?
Sure, if that's not too hard.
Okay. You'll
yeah.
have to accept it here.
Okay. Okay. There we go. All right. Good. Can you all hear me now?
Got you loud and clear, Willie.
Excellent. All right. Thanks. And thanks for the invitation to present at the City Council meeting. I'm always happy to present to City Council and hope to get over there a few times this year in person. So I know many of you, and it's good to see a lot of familiar faces. There's a few new faces and names that I look forward to meeting when I get over to Seldovia in the spring. Just a real quick update on what's going on in the borough. I tried to make some notes here of things that would apply particularly to Seldovia because we have a lot of things going on in the borough that some of them are more of interest to Seldovia than others, but I I wanted to remind everybody, and hopefully you're all aware of this and have done it. If you are a residential property owner, the borough has a new exemption for residential property owners. It increased from $50,000 to $75,000. But you need to reapply. Everybody needs to reapply. So the $50,000 exemption, many people have had for years and have not reapplied. But if you want to get any residential exemption at all, and particularly the new increase to 75,000, you need to apply before February 15th. So if anybody needs information on that, I could supply that to the city clerk. But it's a simple form. You can do it online or via postal mail. So make sure residential property owners get their full exemption. We did ask the governor to declare a disaster for the East Side Cook Inlet set net fishery last year. It's been a long going struggle for the set netters. I commented at the borough meeting a few days ago that seems like more of a political disaster than a natural disaster, but it's a disaster nonetheless because the set netters have only had very, very minimal openings. Set netting's been closed, practically completely closed for a couple of years. They've allowed experimental dip net fishery that actually they caught some fish this year in the dip net fishery, not the personal use dip net fishery, but this is people with set net permits on their set net sites are allowed to use dip nets to catch sockeyes for sale in the commercial fishery, up, from Ninilchik on up to Kenai area there. So we asked the governor to declare a disaster, which might help the fishermen get a few dollars in relief if that does go through. Let's see what else we've got. We passed a capital projects package, priorities package, capital project priorities that we will be bringing to the state legislature. Very unlikely that many of those will get funded by the state legislature. The state is still in a challenging fiscal bind, and the days of funding big capital projects for local communities is over. But we still think it's important for the state legislators to know what capital priorities we have, and I didn't see any on the list for the Seldovia area. Excuse me. These are for areas outside of the incorporated cities, which would include Seldovia Village area, but apparently no requests were made from the folks outside the city for any capital projects. There is a request for state funding for road improvements, borough road improvements. Some of your roads over there are borough roads. So we have requested state funding to help with some of our road improvements. Let's see, what else we got here? Here's a big one. I have not talked with Heidi or Liz about this particularly, but I'm sure I know those two are both aware that there was a citizen initiative last year that was approved, and it moves our local borough elections from the first Tuesday of October to the first Tuesday of November to align with state elections. So the Assembly recently passed a resolution that gives notice that we're going to nullify our previous agreements with the cities where we've shared equipment and resources and those kind of things. I know the city of Seldovia, I'm pretty sure the city has been pretty self-sufficient on their elections, and but some of the other cities we've shared equipment with and such things. So the borough will be changing our election date to November to align with state and federal elections. And cities have the option to do that, but they don't have to. They can keep them in their normal October election time. But we need to have some conversations about that with cities who use or get borough support for their elections. So, and let's see, looking at my list here. Well, the big one is swimming pools. We've been talking about that for a couple of years. And looks like, well, there will be a school district workshop tomorrow, I think 1 p.m. tomorrow, that's going to delve a little bit more deeply into the issue of the school district funding or proposals to suspend funding for pools borough-wide. There's 7 pools in schools around the borough. Of course, Seldovia pool, that was slated to be defunded last year, and Brent Johnson and I on the assembly requested they be refunded, and the school board came through at the last minute and did fund the Seldovia and Ninilchik swimming pools for 1 more year. This year, however, all 7 pools very likely to be completely defunded by the school district, which means there are other options on the table. And Seldovia, you guys are actually in a much better place than many of the other communities because you have a recreation service area that includes the city and the outlying areas. And of course, the SOC, the Seattle Community Center, is funded by the recreation service area, and you have a SURSA board that makes recommendations on how that money is spent. And last year, the assembly, at many people's requests, and I supported, raised the recreation service area mill rate from 0.75 to 1.0 to try and develop some more funding if and when the school pool funding was discontinued. So it looks like that is imminent. School board will be discussing that more tomorrow. So having a recreation service area, you have a funding source. The mill rate right now does not cover the complete expenses that the pool would incur. I think I sent Liz a copy of a presentation. Maybe others have seen it, that the school board would be looking at tomorrow. But it looks like the school district estimates the cost to operate the Seldovia pool at about $121,000 a year. And that includes general operations, salaries, and maintenance funds. So right now, I don't think your mill rate for the recreation service area would cover that whole thing. And of course, right now it covers a big expense. The bulk of the service area tax dollars go towards operating the SOC and having an employee manage the community center there. So some big decisions need to be made there. And I know you guys have been talking about that quite a bit, and I'm happy to do what I can to help on this end. And lastly, I wanted to say the mayor has said a number of times how much he appreciates 2 members of the Seldovia community who are serve on the Resilience and Security Advisory Commission, Hig Higman and Byron McCord. He's mentioned many times how valuable they are to helping the borough in energy issues and all kinds of issues. Right now, they're working on recommendations for the waste stream and solid waste, particularly recycling. The recycling has had some problems. Of course, you guys have a much smaller facility for solid waste, and the bigger facilities on the mainland are dealing with replacing balers and trying to find markets for recyclable goods. So Hig and Byron have been very helpful, and we really appreciate their input. So that's all I had to report right now. As I said, lots of other things going on, but I am really always interested in answering questions or trying to help find answers. So I talked to Heidi and Liz fairly often, got to see them up at the Alaska Municipal League Conference, and it's always a pleasure to work with you guys. It's good to see you again, Mayor Campbell. Haven't seen you in a while. So anyway, I'll just be open for questions.
Yeah, thanks for the update, Willie. Really appreciate that. go ahead and open it up to any council members. Anyone from the administration, anyone have any questions or comments for Willie? Quiet tonight.
Willie?
Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
And I don't know if this is out of line a little bit, but to me, the east side of Kachemak Bay, which includes everything from the upper end of Kachemak Bay down to the lower end, the tax mill rate and what we get in return for services from the Kenai Borough, is there a fair distribution of tax dollars that comes to the city of Seldovia?
So that's an interesting question. I hear that a lot of times, particularly from people in more remote communities that get very few services. The way it works is there's a general fund mill rate. The mill rate we reduced last year from actually a pretty significant reduction in the rate from 4.5 to 3.85. Not everybody saw a reduction in taxes because the assessments, the property values have increased. So it's an ongoing struggle. But you guys have an overlay of both borough services and city services there. So you do pay city taxes and you also pay borough taxes. The one thing that you guys in Seldovia don't pay is the hospital mill rate. Over on our side of the bay here, we pay about a 2.0, I think it might have gone down a little bit, mill rate to support the hospital. Outside of the city, you also don't pay the borough road. Well, let's see. I'm not sure about that. You might pay those inside the city. There's a borough road service area mill rate, but you do pay the service area mill rate, the recreation service area. So what services do you get? You get a landfill. I know it's not the best. It's not as desirable as some of the solid waste facilities we have over here. You get some borough roads. You get a school. The borough significantly supports the school over there. So those are the main things that are funded with the borough mill rate. But is it a fair, equitable distribution? I don't know. We try to make it as fair as possible, and it's just inevitable that some people, in where I live, actually we pay the highest mill rate of anywhere in the borough. We're paying close to 10 mills because in addition to the general fund, we pay the hospital service area, we pay the Kachemak emergency services, we pay the road service area. So it all adds up, but it's always a balancing act. So I don't know if that answers your question or hopefully gives you a little bit more background.
Willie, I understand. Is there any way that you could somehow verify if that distribution is in all fairness for the services we get? I know defunding the school pool was a big thing to the community here, and it's kind of like the diamond of the town in a sense. All of us tend to use that service. But I would just, I'd be interested to know on that distribution if we're getting our fair share for these services.
Yeah. It's hard to parse that out. I've had complaints from folks in the past that the borough's spending too much on the Seldovia school. I mean, I am an advocate of full funding of schools, but the pool thing, it was unfair for the school district to target Seldovia and Ninilchik last year, and we fought really hard to get that funding replaced. So I thought that was unfair that they were going to only close those two small community pools. This year they're going to close all pools. If they close the pools, they will close all across, whether it's Soldotna, Seward, Homer. They will be closing all the pools or defunding them, I guess, with other options to keep them open. So, for the population base over there, per capita, you might look at it as getting more bang for your buck, even though you don't have all the borough services we get on this side. So it's really hard to add numbers to that. If you want, I can certainly ask our finance director to come up with numbers about how much of our expenditures are directed towards Seldovia. I can get that number, but it's a small number. But of course, small community. So
Willie, thank you for your comment. Appreciate it.
you're welcome.
Thanks, Willie. I see Member Payton has joined us. Harmony, I saw your hand up. Did you have a question or?
No, I mean, I was gonna jump in on what Jack said about, is there any way we could match funds with our service area and, get a 10% match with the borough? Since we do pay those taxes, we pay state, we pay, road tax on $7 a gallon over here for gasoline. We don't drive as many miles, but we pay for twice as much per gallon. But also, that was just really a facetious splitting of hairs. That's not a really fair question to ask in this economic climate. But we do want our pool. So, previously with our previous SOC director, there was a conversation around some sort of borough-wide service area for pools. I don't know if that was an official conversation, if that was something that you were part of, Mr. Dunn, if you have any insight on where that conversation was going, or if that's something that other schools and pools are still interested in. I don't want to lose momentum on this conversation before, it would be really sad if the school's opening up again next fall and we're in the same spot.
Yeah. Thanks, Harmony. I can give you a little bit of information on the proposed ideas. There had been talk of a borough-wide recreation service area at one point to help fund pools, but it seems like that discussion has withered and died, mainly because the voters in Ninilchik overwhelmingly voted to not have a service area. The local community there, local community got a proposal on the ballot to create a service area to fund the pool, and the citizens voted that down. And so the mayor and his staff looked at that as kind of a message from at least that community that we're not willing to pay more property taxes to fund the pool. You guys in Seldovia, a completely different story because you already have a recreation service area. So you've got more options, you've got more leverage, more room at the bargaining table, especially if there could be, other funding sources, whether it's the city or the tribe or whatever, private donations, whoever. I think everything's on the table. But the fact that you do have a service area and have a funding source that's already receiving funds that could go towards the pool. They're not currently, but they could. That gives you guys an advantage. So I don't think I haven't heard anybody talk about a borough-wide recreation service area since the Ninilchik defeat, and the mayor has not put that on the table as something that he's working towards right now. My understanding is the borough and the school district is inviting local communities to have discussions, and whether the city or some other entity that I've heard people talking here in Homer, the Kachemak Swim Club, which is a very large organization here, that perhaps they would consider being part of the funding stream for pools. But anyway, the discussions are just starting. We'll probably know a lot more after tomorrow afternoon when the school district has some pretty in-depth discussions about that.
Yeah, Willie, follow up to that, just thinking through, I don't know if their plan is if it's all or nothing to, zero funding, or if they would, if a community has and I know how that works and during the budget process, so it'd be hard to earmark, a percentage of funds available for a community, say, 15% or something of their current budget for the pools. If a community like ours is able to or any of the smaller communities are able to, scrounge up enough money to get it, but come up a little bit short, if there was still some level of funding, albeit small, 10 or 15%, that might close the gap for us. But just thinking out loud, not sure how. I'm sure those discussions are going to be all over the place for sure.
They will be all over the place, and I think it's good. All options are on the table. I get the sense that the school district is they're going to cut all funding for pools because it will save them, I think, $1.7 million, significant amount of money. And, right now, every community, the school district funds every community regardless of the size of the community or the cost of the pools. They do what needs to be done to keep the pools open. But in the latest discussion, the latest presentation to the school board, they've broken down the costs by community pool. So the Seldovia pool has a much lower cost of operation than, say, the Homer pool. So, that they're not going to estimate the costs equally for every pool. They're doing it by community. So I think I mentioned earlier, $121,000 a year is the estimate that the school board has to operate the Seldovia pool, which seems achievable. It's going to be painful to come up with that money, but some of the bigger pools, the Sohi and the Homer pools, are much more expensive to operate, like 5 to 6 times as costly. So everything's on the table. The discussions are going to be all over the place, but it looks like the school district proposal for their budget is to have zero funding for pools. They've got some ideas, community funding. The borough could fund outside of the cap. There's been some legal questions about whether the borough can actually do that or not. So the discussions are still happening, and the next few months are going to be critical in being part of being at the table for those discussions. And I think your city manager and your city clerk have been part of those discussions, and I think they intend to continue doing that.
Okay, great. Thanks, Willie. Did we have anybody else in the I can't see on the monitor. Is there anyone in the audience that had any questions for Willie?
We do not, but I noticed Randy's hand is raised online.
Okay. Yeah, that's Randy. Yeah, that's fine. I can't see who's online, so.
Can you, this is Randy. Can you hear me?
Yep, we got you, Randy.
Okay. I just wanted to, let you know that I'm just standing by at the school board to testify today so that some information can be provided to the workshop session tomorrow. I guess, the school board had, as Mr. Dunn has provided, that the school board has provided some of the financial information, which is critical to moving forward as far as doing any proposals. I guess one of the things I was doing some preliminary research, and in the Kenai Peninsula Borough, there are 67,000 properties, and if that $1.7 million cost of pools was funded by all the property owners distributed, that would only be $26 a property. And so, and that, to me, that was just, I kept doing the math because I kept trying to figure out, is that really correct? I think for us, it might, for a small community like us, it might be a few $100s to be able to operate the pool. So there's a massive difference. And I guess right now with the sort of borough-wide service area not being in place, and the cap issue, it's just like being able to actually implement that. But I just wonder if people throughout the borough understood that that's what it could, if that's something that could actually be pretty a small amount of money for a pretty massive impact. And it's also something I think as a school is shedding sort of the cultural and activity kinds of things, how we respond as a borough to being able to retain those extracurricular activities is something that seems like there might be some kind of room for a, a larger strategic discussion to really um, evaluate what is happening and how it can be addressed and what we can afford, as a borough and communities. Let's see. I guess the other thing is with these discussions, one of one of my requests to the school board would be to have a transition plan and to incorporate the milestones in the budget cycles for the school district and the assembly, because as things happen, if these milestones aren't met, then there won't be an opportunity to do anything in the next fiscal year. So that's a concern. And even and just as an example of how sometimes things don't happen timely, we still don't have an open pool, even though we had funding by the school district. So any rate, I'll just leave it there, but just trying to work things as best as possible.
Thanks, Randy. So I really appreciate you reaching out in the past and continue to always happy to talk with you, Randy. I appreciate your input, your ideas. That idea that a $1.7 million spread across all of the properties is a very small amount per property. And we discuss those things all the time at the borough and the assembly. And our mayor has been very adamant that he wants to hold down costs, and I appreciate his fiscal conservative viewpoint, and it's going to be very hard for the assembly to approve funding above what he thinks is appropriate, limiting it to a 2.5 increase per year to kind of just barely keep up with inflation. But I think those discussions are critically important. So and I know your frustration with the pool being closed and the maintenance issues and the lack of attention to some of those things. It's very frustrating. I know. So, part of my job is to remind the rest of the assembly that Seldovia is a very active community, vibrant community, and the school is a really important part of the community, and that we shouldn't forget Seldovia, even though the bigger cities tend to get much more attention and services. So I'll do my best to continue standing up for you guys.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else questions for Willie?
I have a question for Mr. Dunn. If the borough granted the Seldovia pool for this year, how come it's not open? I mean, we're looking at January.
Yeah, I've heard it's a problem with the pump. I don't know the details. I'm sure other folks there know more details than I do, but my understanding it's parts and maintenance problems, and that
Our first day's tomorrow. It'll be open.
okay.
It's a multitude of things that have caused it to be delayed opening. The maintenance issues, getting the parts, staffing, finally getting a pool manager, and then currently all of the lifeguards have lapsed on our training. So we have to also get our training going to have lifeguards to open the pool and get somebody over here to do the training. So that's my understanding where we're at.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, anyone else? Last chance here.
I guess Mayor Campbell, I have one question.
Sure.
Here, different hat. Mr. Dunn, we talked a little bit about whether or not the borough can use funds to fund the pool now in the cap funds. Have you gotten any more clarification on that?
I have not gotten any additional legal clarification on that since we've talked earlier. However, I was a bit surprised to see in the school board presentation or the school district presentation regarding the pool discussion, there was the idea of funding for pools outside of the cap. So perhaps there's been some movement on those legal decisions. There's been court cases that have kind of muddied the waters. You know, basically right now, or as of last year, any money we gave towards services that weren't strictly educational, that were things like, helping support the community pool, some communities were not counting that towards the cap, the maximum that the boroughs or the municipalities are allowed to provide to schools. There's a minimum and a maximum that are legally, you have to be within those bounds. So, but there was a court case that threw that all into question. So thanks, Liz. That is a really good question, because I was kind of caught off guard when I saw the proposal that the borough might be able to fund outside the cap for that. So I'm going to ask that question tomorrow for sure.
Thank you.
All right. Unless there's any more, Willie, appreciate it. Lots of good information tonight. Good exchange from everyone with their questions. So obviously a few things that are very important to us over here, and the pool is one of them, along with our school and a number of things. So appreciate you your representation. Thanks for doing what you do, and appreciate the update on everything. And yeah, hopefully we can all get in the same room here one of these days and get our schedules to align. So, but thanks for taking the time tonight. Really appreciate that.
You're welcome. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay, have a good evening. All right. Well, we will move on to item H, public presentation for items not on the agenda. Liz, do we have anyone signed up for that tonight?
We have nobody who signed up previously, and there's nobody in the room that wants to speak.
Okay, sounds good. Go ahead and move down to item I, committee and advisory board reports. We have none listed for this evening. Item J, administrative reports. We have the city clerk report on the municipal election update.
Yeah, so I wanted, I think Assemblymember Dunn spoke to this a little bit, but in the laydown on page 3, I put together a little short memo on the possibility of aligning our city election dates with the state and the borough. And we have been part of an MOU with the borough that's now going to be terminated because their elections are moving to November. And that agreement that we participated in includes our ballot printing, coordination on absentee ballots, our ADA accessible voting tablets that we have, the tabulators that we run our ballots through, and printing in the official election pamphlet. And I don't know if City Manager Gagel has any more input on the success of that, but they are terminating that MOU, but are offering to do a new one for cities that are going to change their election dates to November. Soldotna and Kenai intend to change their election dates. I believe the city of Kenai has to do it through a special election, and Seward also intends to change their date to November, but they're going to have to wait a year until 2027 to implement that. Homer is also contemplating changing theirs as well. And so I just kind of wanted to get a sense of what the council priorities were and whether or not we wanted to explore realigning those election dates and having the city elections in November. So in the considerations, the process for changing that would be an ordinance change to our election code, and aligning those dates could promote consistency and potentially increase voter participation. So that's one thing to consider, and maintaining the ADA accessible voting options. I did put in the memo the costs for purchasing our own equipment to run the election with the same type of equipment that voters are used to now. And those costs are on page 4. And They're pretty big. And then the other consideration would be the polling location capacity to accommodate two sets of voters, which would be in this room. I think we could do, it would be tight, but I think it's doable. They are on the borough level exploring the possibility of coordinating and putting elections back in the schools for the larger areas where they're going to have three elections operating at the same time, city, borough, and state. And so where they are in those discussions, I'm not sure. But if council is interested in possibly changing that, we could ask to be included in that part of the discussion as well. And on the bottom of the memo on page 3 of the laydown, you can see the costs for operating our election through the borough was $1,199.50, plus the cost of paying our election workers, which would stay the same. And then if you go to the other page, you'll see the cost for the annual equipment rentals is about $7,000. To rent that on our own or purchasing the equipment would be $15,000 for a one-time cost plus $1,500 additionally. So don't know if there's any more information I can provide or if there's any initial thoughts on that, but I kind of wanted to get that conversation going and seeing where everybody sat or any more questions on that discussion. And I'll turn that back over to the mayor if there's any other questions.
All right, thanks, Liz. Yeah, I guess we should just get some, I guess the way I see this is get a few initial comments here from council, what your thoughts are, and then we'd obviously we have some decisions we have to make here one way or another, but if we are thinking about possibly realigning our local elections to coincide with the borough elections, then it would probably make sense to talk about that and get that in a full-blown council action item to consider at the one of our upcoming meetings. So yeah, just open it up for comments. Anyone have any initial thoughts, questions, comments on changing our elections to align with the borough and the state?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
I saw this and it makes 100% sense to me when I had saw that on the ballot to adjust the dates for the borough, that my mind went right to that it would make sense for everything to be aligned. I agree. I think it would make a lot better turnout. I feel like I know just even in my household, confusion when there's different dates, because where we had moved from, that everything was always all together when you would go in or do it through mail. And the cost savings also makes sense when you start to look down at the numbers there. Those partnerships are invaluable. So I would be all for moving forward to bring this to the table for us to vote on and try to realign and get a new MOU with the borough.
Yes, sounds good.
Yeah, I'm also in full agreement with Ashley. It just makes sense. There's less confusion, a larger turnout. We all want, the power of the vote, to reflect the opinion of the people. If we streamlined it, it would save funds. I also really like bringing it back into the school. If we could, jump on that bandwagon, I think that would be, a wonderful example for the students. I mean, in discussing this earlier, I was thinking that, if it did have to have an in-service day, that could be aligned, so we could have a full day for people to come and vote, but bring it back to the school sounds like a good idea to me as well.
Okay, anyone else?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I was like to touch on the purchasing the equipment rather than paying $7,000 every election for the rental costs. I'd like to know what other people's opinion is on that.
So I guess I'm looking for a little clarification here, Liz. So if we were to move our elections to coincide with the borough's elections, the borough and the state elections, then we would have to end up getting our own equipment, or we would under the new MOU, we would be able to still share.
Under that new MOU, the intention would be that we would currently share. So we would have the borough would provide a tabulator and a voting
Okay.
box and the ADA tablet in a similar manner to the previous
What we're
MOU.
doing now. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. If we don't, that's when the either these options for either the rental or the purchase comes into play.
Yeah, so if we don't, we would be on our own in October, so that would go back to not coordinating with the borough. And sure, City Manager Gagel might be able to talk a little bit more about how that process worked beforehand, but it would be printing our own ballots. And if we wanted to use the machines, then we would have to provide that ourselves.
Gotcha. I think back to Jackie's question then, I mean, yeah, obviously, for me, I would not like to either have to rent or purchase the equipment. I think myself, it does make sense to align our elections with the borough and the state. The main driver for me is just the participation. I think, you know, you get voters that if you're going to go, then you're going to be more likely, I think, to vote all, you know, in all the elections that you're going to that evening to participate in, rather than, you know, opt out. Or, you know, sometimes, you know, some of these elections you have really low turnout, you know, and then for one reason or another, if you tend to have more than, you know, one or two a year. So but yeah, I think it's a good idea. It makes sense all the way around to consider having our elections line with the borough and the state. Anyone else? So Heidi or Liz, what would next steps be then on this? To get it on the agenda, would you guys would you work with the borough first, or would we have to get a draft, actually change, get an ordinance approving the change, and then you would just work with the borough on a new MOU?
Yeah, so Mayor Campbell, the process I think that the borough would like us to go to is to figure out the dates that we want and then work towards the MOU. Soldotna and Kenai are already working towards that process. And once the borough is kind of clear if we have an intention to go forward on that, then they'll start working on that MOU. But I think the next step in the process would be to have an ordinance or a work session on an ordinance put forward to change our election date.
And does this ordinance actually allow us to change the date, or does this have to go before the Seldovia voters?
We do just need an ordinance to change it.
Okay.
If council would prefer to have a more public process to get input, we could do that. But it is an ordinance change. So
Okay, yeah,
Title
I was just wondering
29,
what our code
yeah,
provides.
Title 29 in our code say the first Tuesday in October, unless by ordinance.
Okay. Okay, good enough. Yeah, I think unless there's any more comments or questions, I think we should probably look at getting this draft for consideration or introduction, and then we can work it through the process.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks for the presentation, Liz. Okay, that will conclude item J. Move on to item K, public hearings, none. Item L, unfinished business, none. Item M, new business. Item M1, council discussion. Jackaloff Uplands lease entry authorization. And we'll go ahead and have a presentation by staff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I know I brought this up in the last couple of city managers reports that DNR was working to grant a lease entry authorization, or an entry authorization for the Jackaloff Bay Dock Uplands lease process, because it's like a 5-year process. So they first do an entry authorization allowing the person, the applicant, to be able to utilize that space while working through the process to obtain a lease. This was the entry authorization itself was provided in the packet as along with a memorandum, which is on page 9. And so if you look at that, I did want to just point out that there's a little background here, and then I did run this by legal and did a thorough review myself, provided some few items of note, fairly standard form, except there are a few requirements with it. So we've already talked about there being an annual fee, a survey, and an appraisal are required. You have to carry insurance. The development plan is required, but that was submitted with the application itself. So it's attached to this entry authorization form. But a few items to note for consideration. In speaking with legal, there's some language in there in the indemnification clause that's it's very heavy on the leasee. And there's been a few other communities who have pushed back on that. It's been difficult because there was a statute change in 2005. So that it may or may not be something we can succeed on pushing back with the state. However, it was recommended that we at least try. And then, of course, if we are not able to make that change, then insurance is the next step, which we would have anyways, or we actually already have, in order to make sure that we're covering the city in the case of any coverage needed. A couple other things, if you look at page 10 for consideration, the legal did recommend that we potentially want to obtain a phase 1 environmental site assessment. So that would be hiring a firm to come out and inspect the property. They'd review any pertinent records, interview stakeholders, and then provide a report. And that way we can use that in the event in the future that there are issues with the property or maintaining or taking care of the property. We have a nice report of the condition that the property was in before it was transferred to us, if that's the way that we continue to proceed. In speaking with an Anchorage firm, and I didn't go out for a lot of quotes or bids. I just wanted to just a wag to start. I was told that typically they see costs for that phase 1 environmental being between $7,000 and $10,000, and that depends on lot size, flights, lodging, and I'm assuming how much background they have to dig into for the site. Maybe that won't be as big of an issue since it's had the same lease owner for the past 55 years, but it is a hefty price to have that done. Other considerations is site cleanup. I know that's something that the council's been outspoken on, not wanting to bear that entire burden of the cleanup of that site. And it does specify in that lease authorization that we are responsible for cleaning up any abandoned vehicles and trash before entering into a lease. So signing that lease authorization would start the countdown, and it would be our responsibility to ensure that we clean up that area. I did get through to DOT. I finally got a pretty solid answer from them. And while there is support for the initiative, there isn't funding with current fiscal revenues in the state right now on the current budget issues. So I did let DOT know that I was going to reach out to our representative, maybe reach out to some individuals and state legislators and our state legislator to start advocating for that funding. And we can explore also including the cleanup with demolition and removal of Jackloft Dock. That was something that was brought up to me by one of the visitors for the project. And they said, well, if you're taking the dock out, why don't you just start taking some debris and vehicles out with it? So that's something, if you guys are interested, I'm willing in putting that in there as part of the project, even if maybe we're covering the costs as part of our match, but certainly something we could look at. And then another option would be to formulate a plan in-house to complete a phased cleanup approach over multiple years through our budgetary process. So I don't think it's completely out of the question yet, but a little disheartening to hear that there isn't funding through the state at this moment. And certainly seems like there needs to be some more advocacy if that's something that we want to continue to pursue. Lastly, I wanted to bring out for consideration the expenses associated with the property. We've already talked about a few. So there's the annual fee, the appraisal, survey, the phase one, environmental site assessment, cleanup, and then any maintenance. I didn't include on here, but I should have that it is important, or it could be an asset to have this property when we do rebuild the dock, because we can use it for staging and landing and part of the construction project. And that was worrisome prior to having this opportunity. Currently, the dock that was removed from the water is staged on that property, but certainly wanted to bring this discussion to council before this entry authorization is signed. See if you guys have any other considerations, concerns, any other avenues you want to pursue or direction you want to provide. Next steps, if you do want to approve this, would be to provide that direction. Well, I guess either way to staff, and then we can move forward however you guys deem appropriate. So please let me know if you have any questions.
Heidi, I have one right off the bat. So if you go to page 11, where it says what this entry authorization is issued for the purpose of authorizing lessee's temporary entry on state land for the purpose of authorizing access to the city's public facility at the Jackaloff Bay Dock, dock maintenance, site cleanup restoration, potential future construction, and parking lot construction in accordance with the approved development plan. So this entry authorization is good for 3 years. According to this, I may have missed it here somewhere, but are we allowed to, during this period, use this for interim parking? It does not specifically say that, so I want to be darn sure that when there's 50 cars parked there, they don't have a cow over that. So, because that's what would happen for the next 3 years during our period. And obviously that would be up to us to manage that, because we would be the ones taking over this.
That's my understanding, but I can double check. It does say in our development plan, that's the number 1, and that's on page 20, that public parking will continue to occur in areas highlighted in purple and numbered. You'd have to look at the map. And that if the lease is granted to the city will work with the citizens and community partners through a public discussion and review process to set policies and procedures for public parking.
Yeah, that would be for the long-term lease, right?
Yeah, but it says in that first sentence, will continue to occur.
Yeah.
So I'll double check. But I believe that what this does is it allows us to utilize that property while we work towards the lease.
Okay. I think it'd be an easy, quick change to add that language, just to make sure. I mean, they do address the parking lot construction, so obviously they know what that's what we're going to be using it for. So, and then one other question was, I noticed it said, let's see, as part of your memo, the last item, let's see, you had on page 9 said, on-site refuse disposal is prohibited. What does that exactly mean?
My understanding, but I can double check on that one as well, is that we can't use it as a landfill.
Okay, we can have a dumpster. I mean, if we want to have a dumpster or cans, we can do that. Okay. Okay, yep, I gotcha. Just wanted to clear that up. All right. Anyone else? If you guys have had a chance to look this over, I know we've been talking about this for a long time, and the time has now come here finally. This is basically a three-year authorization for us to get our ducks in a row, get this thing developed, ready to go, cleaned up, and then obviously that's once they see that, that's when they approve the lease for us. Harmony, I see you got your hand up.
Yep, I'm in favor of moving forward with this lease. My one caveat is, of course, as Heidi has obviously predicted, the cost of cleanup out there. I like what she mentioned there about it being part of our matching, going towards our matching funds. It could be a simple cleanup, hauling things away, but depending on how thorough they want us to be as far as like soil depth or whatever, if they're like going to be really fastidious about it, that could get expensive really fast. Like if they're thinking about some of those vehicles that have been sitting there for a long time and the potential they may have caused. But yeah, this is so exciting. I love it. Hooray.
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Yep.
Harmony, thank you. That brought up a good point. Heidi, do we have any guidelines of what they will deem cleaned up looks like? Because as she mentioned, there's our eyes of cleaned up, which should look really good, but when we will get that checked off to say that we're in compliance with our lease?
Through the mayor, that is an excellent question, and I will go back and ask.
Thank you. And I
Yeah.
agree with Harmony. I think that with our options currently, without having DOT available to help, trying to at least start the process by utilizing our matching in-kind funds or however that looks. And we're already taking the dock out to, if there's room for more to do that, I would be in full support of that.
So I think at the very least, they would probably require the phase one. I don't know if it's specific. I didn't read that anywhere, but I think the phase one on our part probably makes sense to get some level of understanding of what's available out there in terms of any public record or any anecdotal information or whatever they, can glean from all the phase one interviews and research data.
Through the mayor, so that is not a requirement that I've heard of, but that was recommended by legal as a safeguard and some protection for the city to have that report prior to entering into a lease.
Okay, and that may be a good, another tool for us to negotiate with as well in terms of the cleanup.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'm coming to this pretty late, and so please forgive me if, this has already been probably discussed at length, but I'm concerned when I'm looking over this. We're responsible for the survey, we're responsible pretty much, there's a considerable financial burden here. Then we're responsible for the cleanup of this property. The level of contamination that, could be on that site, is concerning to me. I mean, I just want to make sure that that's very clear in the wording because it seems like, it's a good step for us. I want to see this happen, but these guys are getting a pretty fair deal for, we're cleaning up their property. We're paying for it. And also, what is the level of cleanup that they're going to require from us? I mean, you're gonna have like testing done. Can we just get some really clear wording as to like, what that's gonna look for us? I mean, like Harmony said, are we gonna, like what level of soil needs to be removed? I mean, how far are they going with this? What do we have to leave it like?
I think
Yes,
part
and
of the
so-
thing to consider here too is everyone's got to remember. So this entry authorization is basically this is our 3-year window here. It could be maybe it goes as quick as a year, right? If there was nothing, if we got it cleaned up and we came back and it was deemed environmentally safe. I mean, this is basically a 3-year negotiation period with the state is what this is. If it turns out this thing was, so contaminated that we were talking a 100,000 or maybe, a 500,000 in cleanup or something. And we said, no, not worth it for us, we walk away. I mean, simple as that. Shitty deal, but we walk away. I mean, that's how that works out. So, yeah, this is to protect us and the state both from signing into a lease with a bunch of unknowns. So that's the good thing here. Yeah, we've all complained already about the cost of the cleanup. That we've been complaining out now for the last 4 or 5 years, ever since we started this process. We complained about we complained just about everything that you brought up, Amon. Unfortunately, so yes, none of us are real happy about how this goes. I think we've got it down to about, the best we can, and yeah, it's still fairly egregious on the state's part what they're doing to us here, and that's on the record, and I have no problem saying that again. So it is not right how they treated this lease or how they treated us with this, and it's kind of crazy that this is how they handle leases within the state of Alaska. But that's the way the chips have fallen on this. So yeah, that's about the history I have on it. Heidi, you got something else?
No, Mr. So yes, there is a history. There's a paper trail on DNR through, there's a clear record paper trail. So it is interesting to look at. I do want to point out that it does say in the entry authorization that the site must be cleared of trash and abandoned vehicles by the city of Seldovia. I didn't see anything further about cleanup. I can specify that they're not looking for anything further, but I do think that phase one environmental assessment does protect us in the future if anything further is needed. So I don't think we're talking about removing soil at this point. There could be other programs through ADEC and such that we can look at if that does need to happen. Ultimately, it is still their property, and so I would hope that if we had that report in hand beforehand, and could make that informed decision before entering into any type of long-term lease, we could work and iron those details out. But for now, in the entry authorization, it states the site must be cleared of trash and abandoned vehicles by the city of Seldovia prior to the lease issuance.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep, go ahead, Jack.
have we had an environmental survey on this piece of property?
Not yet. Nope. That would be forthcoming.
And the reason I asked that, I've had other state lease properties, and in transferring, that's been part of the prerequisite, and they do sniff tests and that, so that the city doesn't end up taking on liability for something that we didn't really create. But once we sign on the dotted line, you were basically responsible. So that would be my only concern, is that we don't get corralled into something that we're going to have to take liability for.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's incumbent on us to move forward with the phase one and see what the recommendations are out of that, and then internally as a council we can see what that looks like, and then then it's up to us to decide collectively as a council whether or not we're comfortable with moving forward, or if we feel that there's more that we need to do before signing the final lease agreements.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Heidi, for that clarification.
Any other thoughts, comments, questions on this entry authorization? Heidi, you would go out for RFP for the survey and RFP for the phase one. Is that correct?
Because of the low cost, I mean, it's not low, but it's under 40,000. I would probably just do a request for quotes and get, get
It doesn't have
3
to
to
be a
6 or
full-blown
however many quotes. Yeah,
I gotcha. Okay. But you would competitively shop it though.
absolutely.
Okay, perfect. One thing I noticed on here, attachment A and the development plan for our little barn, our lofted barn. I absolutely oppose that style for anything that the city ever has to do again. So I would want to see something other than a barn out there, because that's a barn. And
Duly
that
noted, Mr. Mayor.
I
is found on
second that.
page 24. You can
I
paint
second
that.
that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. You can paint that any way you want. Still going to look like a barn. So, all right, as long as we're not married to that, I'm sure we can come up with a architectural alternative, pleasing alternative. So, yeah, everything else though is pretty straightforward. It's kind of what we've been talking about here for the last 4 or 5 years. Long process. We're finally getting there. Both on the uplands, the dock. It's all coming together. This has been a long project for the city. So, and we've had quite a few council changes over that time too. So, but it is exciting for us to see this through. Hopefully this next part, if you guys are all in agreement, will go as planned, and then we can eventually get our lease signed here, our dock built, and hopefully here within the next, 12 to 15 months or so, we'd have be nice to have our dock in play, and a clean parking lot, and everything generating revenue like we had planned all along. So yeah, I'm definitely in support of moving forward with the entry authorization. All right, anyone else before we go to public? Okay. Anyone on the line, Liz, or in person that wishes to comment on the
Yeah,
lease
we do have
authorization?
somebody in the room that would like to comment.
Okay, great.
Hey, Pearly.
Hi, I'm Pearlie Morrison, 100 Creekside Drive. So if I understand right, 40,000 for phase one. Is that what you said? Around 40,000 to clean up?
No, I think 7 to 10,000 for the somewhere around there for the phase one environmental, just for the environmental assessment. Cleanup is unknown still for what it would cost us to get the vehicles out of there, Pearly.
So what is phase one if it's not cleaning up the vehicles and the trash?
Phase one is just doing an phase one environmental assessment. They'll come in, do a site survey. They'll do interviews. They'll look through public records, look through anything that's been reported to government agencies, anything regarding that site. There's probably a few more things that they do as well.
I guess I misunderstood that. I thought you were saying that we have to do that and then we're going to do the assessment on the cleanup of the soil and whatever else is left. So my mistake. The previous leasee is a state holding them anywhere at all responsible for the trash that they left on that property?
No, to my understanding, that's all been gone through. We filed our grievances, appeals, everything, and basically at the end of the day, I think they've Heidi, and you can jump in. I think they've terminated the lease with them, and we're on to greener pastures, if you will.
Okay. So what the map is in that folder, the printout for the meeting. So we're gonna, I thought a while ago, I talked to somebody and they said we're just getting the lower end of that. So now we're leasing the whole thing all the way up across the road and back down in, or are you just getting a piece of by the waterfront?
Liz, if you want to go to page 23 there, I don't know if you can share that so Pearlie can see that, but page 23 of the packet. No, we're gonna get everything in yellow. We're gonna get everything in yellow.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and the other thing, it looked like it was the whole thing.
Yeah, and basically all the stuff in purple, purple will be where all the parking will be at. And then the right of way on the dash lines going to the approach access for the new dock, that the state maintains that the actual right of way itself.
Okay. And what's the reason we can't get the other half of that?
They basically wouldn't give it up.
Down on the waterfront, they wouldn't give it up for us?
No, we've got the waterfront. It's the upper sections, in the treed area. The tidelands are the shoreline's the shoreline.
Right.
But the everything else in black, we're going across the road, up on the really steep hill on the tree, and then everything in that parking lot at Jackaloff that runs up the hill
Right.
back to the west. They hung on to that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Liz, do we have anyone else?
No, that is all for public comment.
Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and bring it back to council for final action. And I would look for a motion then to approve item M1 for the lease entry authorization.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep, go ahead.
I would like to make a motion to approve item M1 to pursue the lease.
I'll second it.
Okay, and Heidi, just as a point of order here, this will be for authorization for you to move forward with basically working through the agreement of the lease entry with the state.
Thanks, Mayor. I clicked out of the page and I couldn't refresh it fast enough.
Mr. Mayor, so to clarify, that's to sign the entry authorization and move forward with next steps.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so we did have a, let's see, the motion I think was from Harmony, and was the second?
Barber.
Okay, Barbara is the second. So we do have a motion to approve signing the lease entry authorization and moving forward on the next steps from Peyton. We have a second from Barber. Any further discussion on the motion before we vote? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote on the approval of item M1. And all those in favor, Coleman,
Aye.
Taylor,
Aye.
Peyton,
Aye.
Barber,
Aye.
Keithley,
Aye.
and Langbart.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes with 6 in the affirmative, 0 opposed. That was our only item up for actual work tonight. So next is going to be item M, City Manager's Report, and this will be in the laydown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So quick update on Jackaloff. We are looking at extending that timeline for the grant agreement. I received an email just the other day asking if we could extend it, which is really unfortunate and pushes out the project potentially to the spring 2027. We're still doing everything in our power to work ahead and try to get it done sooner than later. Moffett and Nichols working with me to ensure that RFP is ready to go as soon as we get the green light from the environmental assessment, which continues to be the holdup. We've had quite a few rounds back and forth with additional information needed and additional comments from MARAD. and we continue to work through that process. So a little bit disheartening, but wanted to make sure I share that with you. Jack Off Uplands, we just had a great discussion about, so we will continue to move forward with that project and see where we get. Raw water transmission line, we have, some exciting things on the horizon. The survey drawings have been submitted to change the work order from the existing transmission line, to the actual access easement. So we're in that process. I've seen the draft utility easement. There seems to be support from the University of Alaska to make that happen. So looking forward to hearing back from them now that they've received the drawings for it. There'll be some cost associated with that. That can be part of those grant funds, can cover that for the new easement. So I'll let you know as that moves forward. The grant agreement timeline has been extended to September 2027. It was supposed to close here at the end of the last year, but due to the delay of getting the grant executed and then now completing the project, we just asked for an amendment to extend the timeline. It took a little while for them to work through that process, especially with the government shutdown, but kept hearing that should not be an issue, and that came through. So we're excited that things seem to be lining up nicely for that project. The Fuel Facility Improvements Project RFP was issued and closes on Friday. We're hoping we will receive a few bids. We've heard a few individuals who have had interest, but nothing super solid. So hopefully we receive a few bid proposals on Friday. I do want to let council know that during the storm last week, I think that was January 6th, that northwest back panel of the facility came loose. And so it's rotted away. The metal has rusted and rotted away and has come apart from the cement pad. We need to get in there and be able to affix some new metal or some way to reattach that panel to the ground. Right now, I don't know if you've seen it. If you drive by, our 416 is sitting right on top of it, in front of it, to hold it in place. Especially during the storm, we didn't want it to have any further damage, but it's gonna take some maneuvering to make that repair. So that is high on the priority list, and it's just another sign of the age of the building and the wear and tear that it's going through. So I'm looking forward to having the inspection done as part of the grant and see where or if there are other items that we need to work on in the future. Main Street, Seldovia stormwater infrastructure improvements, as well as Seldovia stormwater improvements at the Frank Rabian Vista area. We've received the 65% for both. The 100% design is scheduled to be received by the end of the fiscal year, along with a revegetation plan, environmental benefits calculation, construction plan, and for the Main Street, a draft RFP. We do plan on going out for a construction bid to install the new stormwater inlet there in front of the Seldovia liquor store. Unfortunately, the funding doesn't include installing the new inlet by the Gateway Pavilion, but those will be funds that we will seek in the future. For Seldovia stormwater infrastructure, it does include buying the new culverts and other supplies that we need to complete those projects, and we will do that work in-house. The Public Works Department has been really itching to get these projects complete over the last year. So it'll be nice that in July we should be able to order those supplies and they can move forward with that project. There are updates in the grant project world. As you know, VSW and CRW were here in December for our water and wastewater system evaluation project, which was convenient timing because we had Vista Avenue have a water main leak just a week after they were here. So that was a really pertinent part of the project that we talked about and how there's a lot of corrosion in the area, impacting both water and sewer. And so we were able to note that damage to CRW after that water main break occurred. And it was just, like I said, another issue that pushed that need. The SVFD repeater replacement, unfortunately, is not going so well. The patch was made on Becker Tower so that they could talk right to Seldovia. There was an issue where they could hear us, but we couldn't talk back to them. They thought that maybe it was our old repeater, so the new repeater was installed in hopes of alleviating it, but apparently the new repeater has a malfunction, so it has to be sent out and repaired. And in the meantime, they're sending us a loaner to install, and potentially they may also send out the old repeater. It hasn't worked from day one. So the new one, anyways, not the old one. But our dispatch chief, Jen Swick, continues to work through that. And so if you see her, maybe give her a big thanks or a pat on the back because she does that all through her volunteerism as a dispatch chief. And I know that it can be a thankless job, but she continues to keep up with it. In fact, I think all of the calls are being forwarded to her phone personally right now while we work through this issue. So definitely big thank you to Jen for her hard work as she tries to problem solve. Let's see, Andy Anderson Police Department improvements. The council budgeted $3,000 for improvements in the FY26 budget. Most of the material for the project has arrived. I know the APIA bought some new flooring. We bought some paint and some other supplies to spruce it up a little bit. So that will be a great joint project just to give that office a little upkeep. It's a little drab in there and the floor is coming apart and there's some stains on the ceiling and the wall looks little like it needs some love. So it'll be good to do a little spruce up in that space. Denali Commission supporting USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service programs and partners. We, if you remember, submitted a statement of interest on December 1st with our partner, Paul Zico with NOAA and Kissimmee Bay Laboratory Facility. We were invited to submit a full application and continue to work with Paul on that. He actually was successful in receiving a commitment from I don't think it was Trout Unlimited, but it was another program that wants to provide some matching funds for this project. He's still working through writing that application for us, and I'll let you guys know as we get a little bit closer to the end. But we definitely have quite a few parties who are really interested in participating in that. At Seldovia Village Tribe has also sounded their support for this project. And so it's kind of a nice feel good, many people wanting to see it come to fruition item that could be fun for the community. Paul's idea is to include like an oversight area and have some education surrounding it so that people can come and learn more about the life cycle of the salmon right there in Fish Creek. Staffing updates, just to let you guys know, David Botero is no longer with the city of Seldovia. He did leave amicably. He's available for questions and to fill in with greater operations. We want to thank him for his service over the last year. For now, the water treatment plant operations are going to be absorbed back into Public Works as it used to be. We'd have, Public Works team of 2 and 2.5, and they would take turns manning the water treatment plant with typically a lead in that position. Riley Beldiga has agreed to take that lead. He's doing really great up there and he's worked alongside David for the last several months. If you remember, him and Amanda actually both have they've both taken the level 1 treatment class and passed the test, and they have their provisional status. This will help Riley being in that lead position, will boost his status and be able to afford him a level 1 certification sooner, which is great for him and great for the plant. He seems to be doing really well up there. So we're thankful for that. I believe Jordan Cameron is going to come into town this week. He might have arrived today. I need to double check and help Riley with the transition. He just had a few questions on some of the reporting and different things that occur up there. So that'll be great to have Jordan's support. And Amanda will continue to provide backup. Amy Morgan also has stepped down as the SBFD fire chief. She's still handling the VPSO duties along with Dewey Morgan, and still responding to calls and a part of the department and active in the public safety realm of both fire, EMS, and policing, but has stepped back into to not have that role anymore. Assistant Fire Chief Travis Jordan has stepped up as the acting fire chief until the next membership meeting where they appoint those positions by election. Quick update on the Martin rezone appeal. Miss Martin did appeal the rezone action that was taken by the council sitting as the Board of Adjustment, and that was dismissed by the court and on December 3rd. Miss Martin did ask the court for either a new trial on the rezone or dismissal of the rezone application, and the judge agreed that a new trial was not justified, and thus the appeal was dismissed upon Miss Martin's request. However, upon Miss Martin's request on January 6th, the judge clarified that Miss Martin would have approximately 6 months to renew the appeal through the court, which would provide Miss Martin time to retain legal counsel to represent her in such an appeal. So still a little bit of back and forth on that, but for now the city considers this appeal closed. Susan B. English School Pool, I know that Mr. Dunn talked a little bit about this. I did want to also bring up that the quarterly work sessions for the KPBSD Board of Education are scheduled for tomorrow, and the discussion regarding pool operations and closures is scheduled for 1 p.m. So if you're interested in that, definitely tune in. They have a packet already that's been publicized that is going to accompany that discussion. They don't allow for public comment during that work session. However, it should be helpful in hearing what direction the board is looking forward for the operation of those pools. The Seldovia Recreational Service Area also has a meeting scheduled for January 13th. That's tomorrow. And while not just directly discussing the pool, I did want to bring that up because it does keep coming up about potentially having to have a local option. And they will have a discussion with the borough regarding their budget procedures at that meeting. FY27 budget, just a quick update and reminder that this discussions on the FY27 budget are fastly looming, and I've started the process internally. Initial FY25 estimates and to-date expenses continue to follow trends of progress, including the water and sewer funds, which were reevaluated by staff and council in FY26 budget. Hoping to have budget work sessions begin next month. Along with those typical budget discussions, we would also introduce a mid-year budget amendment. It sounds like maybe we need to look at jackloff, and there's a few other things. The spray foam installation we've talked about, some legal fees and such that should be noted and included in that budget amendment. Council also prioritized financial policies in their 2026 priorities. So we could have some work sessions and discussions on what that would look like, and a capital budget discussion. If there are any other specific topics that you guys would like to see, please let me know. That way we can start working on them and then have some great material to present. FY25 audit preparation is nearly complete, and audit work is scheduled to begin in earnest in February. Again, for the upcoming council business, public comment forum for the comprehensive plan is scheduled for Wednesday, January 14th. So if you can come, please do. We'll have a representative from Alaska Municipal League here that they've been helping us with the plan. I believe Robert Ruffner, the Kenai Peninsula Borough Planning Director, may be in attendance on Zoom. And we'll have some snacks, have some good discussion. So definitely, if you want to hear more about the comprehensive plan, especially for the public, please come out. And then those comments can be considered by the council and the planning commission and moving forward on whether that they should be included in that plan. We just talked about having a mid-year budget adjustment. And one thing I didn't include on here is that it's time, that time again for my annual performance review. So I'm working on a packet of material for that, hoping to get that around in the next day or two, and looking at potentially having an executive session at the next meeting if that works and aligns for your guys' schedules. If there's a better time you guys would like to have that, please let me know. But it is time. So I'm working on packet material, but if there is anything specific you'd like to see included in that review, again, let me know. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Heidi. Any questions, comments for city manager tonight on her report? Okay. Take us to item O, informational items not requiring action. As Heidi just mentioned, the comprehensive plan update, final draft is out for public comment. Public meeting will be held on Wednesday, January 24th, January 14th, 2026 at 6 p.m. And comments should be submitted by February 2nd, 2026. Item P, executive session, none. Item Q, council and mayor comments concerning items not on the agenda. Coleman.
Not at this time.
Taylor.
None at this time.
Peyton.
Excellent work, Heidi. It sounds like you had an incredibly busy Christmas break. I'm sorry to hear that there was so much on your agenda, but happy at all that you do for us to keep our community going. And I know there's something else. Oh yeah, I know, see, looks like Randy's already gone, but thank you to all the community members and board members and everybody else who continues to advocate for our school and our pool and our kids. We live in an awesome place, you guys. Good night.
Thank you, Harmony. Barber.
I don't know if this is the right time to ask for it, but I'd like the council to consider a couple resolutions. And one would be on the rezoning of the 3 lots east of the pavilion down there from commercial to rezone it back, or rezone it to commercial residential waterfront. And the other one would be to make the airport property out there to be tax exempt from sales tax. I've read the comprehensive plan. I think the language is in there that the council could rezone to go to a vote. The reason the tax exempt, I'd like to see that is that we already have the state taxes us to do business out there, 5 cents on a gallon of gas. Any concessions over 50,000 is more. The high cost of doing business on the airport, they want $6,000 just to hook up to a meter when it's sitting right in 50, 60 feet of your meter base. I don't think the city has any services that they give to the airport out there. And at this, if there is any, I don't know what it is. It's possible, but I'd like this to be considered to make a business incentive, because the state is already imposing taxes on us to do business out there.
Heidi or Liz, can Councilmember Barber, can he just, since if he wants to sponsor those resolutions, can he come in, and does he just need to come in and talk to you, or any kind of framework, or what's the next step on that?
Mr. Mayor, I guess I
Yeah.
can take that one. So I don't know if that would be the right vehicle for one or the other, so we can look into that first, if a resolution would be the right vehicle, as particularly the rezone. All rezones have to go through the planning commission, so you could refer it back down to them. And then they would recommend it up, and that would be passed by an ordinance. I know it seems counterintuitive, but they are the zoning authority, and so they would provide the advice on that. But we can look at what avenue, if there's another avenue, or what that would look like, to have a discussion on that for the body to refer that back down to the planning commission, or if we're even in a place where we can do that right now with recent proceedings. As for the tax exempt at the airport, I believe that'd be a bigger discussion with the borough, but I'll check in with that, since they are also our taxing authority, and we follow their legislation for taxing, and they collect that for us. So we can pass our own tax policies in a lot of ways, and I'm guessing that there is a way to do it, but I think we would need more information on what the right vehicle for that would be.
Yeah, if you can just work through next steps on those and see what it's going to take to, where we go and how we work to get something in the works for discussions on both of those, that'd be great. So,
Can do, Mr. Mayor.
all right. Thank you. And thank you, Councilman Barber, for bringing those up. Let's see who's next here. Barber, Keithley.
Hey, I just wanted to let everybody know that the ice rink is finally up and going. We've had great weather, but it's been rocking and rolling. There's been lots of people out enjoying it. And I just wanted to throw out there that it's a community effort. So when people need a little workout, if you see there's some snow on it, I've been leaving a shovel. Feel free to hop on with your shoes or throw some skates on and shovel some snow. It doesn't have to be all of it, but it just helps out so that when the kids want to go down, it's or everybody, it's skatable. And Marina, if you see her, thank her. She's learned a lot, and she's put a lot of time into it as well to get it going. And on Saturdays from 10 to noon, I'm going to be there, sponsored by the SOC, available for questions, skate stuff, lessons, all of that. And it's free for everybody to come. So weather permitting. So I'm just trying to help her get that out as well, trying to make sure everybody knows it's there for everybody. So that is all I have. Thank you guys. And thank you to those who came to the meeting tonight. It's always nice to be back in the room.
Thanks, Ashley, for the update on that. Glad to hear that is up and running. I imagine there's a lot of people anxious to get out and start participating in winter recreation. Langbart.
No comment at this time, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's see. Next regular meeting will be held on Monday, January 26th at 2026. So, and I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn by Langbart, second by Peyton. Any objection? Hearing none, we are adjourned. All right, thank you, everyone, and have a
Thank
good
you,
night.
Mr. Mayor.